Hello, I am so glad that you're back, and I'm so excited for part two. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Had such a great time with the last conversation. So really excited to kind of dive deeper into, some of the other topics that we can discuss with business.
Alrighty, are you ready to dive in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I would love to learn more about the moment when you decided to actually build Distrxct. Had this idea been living in your head before the layoff, or did the layoff create this space to really see it clearly for the first time?
Yeah. So I would say the layoff created the space and the time for me to put intentionality behind the project that I wanted to do. And so I've always known that I wanted to build something, particularly in the Nigerian landscape, for the last, I feel like, few years pre-district. So I would say starting in 2018, around like my junior year, maybe senior year, I'm aging myself, of college, I knew that I wanted to have a business out there in Nigeria. I just didn't know what it was. I also knew I just had like so many other priorities. Again, at the time, I was going down a different route, and I felt like having a business would be a nice add on for passive income when permitted, right? When the time allowed. But it wasn't something that I was really able to focus on. And so, back to our last conversation, the layoff really gave so many people the opportunity to pause and focus on career projects or, you know, opportunities that had been on pause for so long. So I was able to really go ahead first into the district because of that opportunity.
And up until then, you had an incredible set of experiences. How did those experiences really shape how you thought about the problem that Distrxct was specifically solving?
Mm-hmm. So because I had my first stint in tech, I had a good understanding of the business development relationship. So I understood what it meant to really sell technology from this customer centric pain point solution, right? People don't buy to buy. Like there are so many different options in the market across all different markets. And so you really have to really frame things in the way that you are solving a need, right? That's the first thing to any successful business. It's like, is this painful enough that I'm willing to spend money to fix it? And so when I was able to have formal training on that. Building Distrxct was a lot easier for me because I was able to take that mentality and apply it into my market research. So when I was thinking about the problems that I personally faced when I went home to Nigeria, not really being able to find, the right vendors, looking for different businesses on the platforms that I had, which were Google, Facebook, Instagram, right? And not being able to really filter or find what I was looking for right away, really leveraging word of mouth and maybe sometimes even being disappointed or scammed or, let down. I was like, there has to be a better solution out there. And I was so shocked when there really wasn't. And so I started asking my immediate network first. I was like, hey, like, are you guys, is this like a me thing? Or are you guys also experiencing the same thing that I am? Just to make sure that number one, this wasn't just unique to me or it wasn't unique to, individuals in the diaspora because we don't live in Nigeria on a day to day, right? And so when I talk to my cousins or my family members or friends who lived in Nigeria, they also had these issues. And, it was just a part of the experience. It was a part of, doing business and finding new opportunities. Sometimes you find a good vendor and you're loyal to that vendor for so long, but maybe that vendor, increases their prices, or maybe they move to a new area, then you have to go through this, almost wild goose chase to find another trusted person. And it really just sucked. So I first off validated the customer point of view, and I knew that this was a pain point, right? But was it something that people would pay money to solve? I'm not too sure, right? Because here in the US, we don't really pay money to solve that problem, right? We rely heavily on Google. And I love Google. I work there. We rely heavily on Google. We rely heavily on sites like Yelp or Nextdoor or Foursquare, or we can even go online. There's so many opportunities for us to do, and we're not paying for these things. And so the next part of this search for me was to understand, okay, are businesses facing issues when they're trying to find customers, right? I'm sure that there are so many businesses out there that start their journey and they don't know how to really build their brand. They don't know how to really increase visibility. They don't know how to gain trust right away. And what if they don't have the network to really launch that career? So then I went into that market research and I started asking questions to individuals who just started their business journey. So these were younger students, these were people who maybe they were doing, a more informal kind of at home business. Maybe that they were traveling nail salon tech, or maybe they did tailoring from their home or something along those lines. And they were super talented individuals, but nobody really knew who they were. They didn't really know how to use Instagram. Like it was just so hard. And their continuous grind was just having people share their work and hoping one day that they would, be blown up on Insta or Twitter, or they would get promo somehow. And so I realized, okay, we have something here. We have people who are willing to pay to get visible. We have people who are looking for reliable businesses. How can I marry these ideas together and create a platform that's really an ecosystem to continue to grow the Nigerian market? And so that's how we created Distrxct.
I love that story so much. And I'm so curious, after you had this idea and you really went about validating it, how
Mm-hmm.
did you then find your co-founder? Was it someone you already know? Was it someone you already knew, or was it someone that you went looking for?
Yeah. So I think it's twofold. My co-founder Shagun is someone that I already knew. However, I didn't know that he was going to end up being my co-founder. So, a little bit of the storyline here. I met Shagun through a mutual connection, Dimitri. So we have a shared friend, and Dimitri knew about my entire journey, even from my transition from my previous career into tech. He was a huge foundation into that conscious career move, and he helped me build a network of individuals who really pushed and progressed me into my first role at DocuSign. And so when I started building Distrxct, when I had my layoff, Dimitri connected me to Shagun, who I had met a few times already. And he was like, hey, like my friend has already thought about this idea, and I think you guys should connect on this level. Now, before that, I had also been going to different networking opportunities here in San Francisco where non-technical founders, excuse me, could look for technical founders. And you're almost kind of pitching your idea to individuals who are looking to join and hop into, the next big thing. And so I was doing a little bit of both. And I'm so thankful that I was able to find Shagun organically. He was someone that I already knew, because it really just accelerated the process, because it was someone I already trusted. We had a mutual respect. We had a shared community. We're both Nigerians. And so we have that, really good grasp on the market and the problem. And it's just we have two different skill sets. And when coming together, we were able to just go in and start some work.
I love that so much. And one thing that I'm so curious about is how you really evaluated what it was you're looking for? You touched on this a little bit between trust and that shared devotion towards creating something that really uplifts the community back home in Nigeria. And what was it that made you feel, okay, this really is the right person to build it with?
Yeah, these are great questions. I feel like for me, I wanted someone to complete the picture. So I knew coming in the areas that I was weak in were around, obviously, technically, I cannot code. This is around the time that we are now just starting to get into this idea of vibe coding. So we had Lovable just coming out. We had OpenClaw and Anthropic were just kind of hitting the market. ChatGPT was not doing what ChatGPT is doing today. And so the great thing was that I was starting to play with these tools to get some sort of validation, some sort of, a rough draft to what I wanted, but I wasn't able to check the work. I wasn't able to understand the security behind it. I wasn't able to truly know if my code base had um, any errors or any vulnerabilities. And so I wanted someone who had a great understanding of coding, who had an understanding of security as well, especially within the market that we were serving. And so for Nigeria, I think some of the major things that we wanted to go into with our product was having a product that, number one, had a really seamless UX experience, something that was only almost brainless, right? I think one of the reasons Facebook Meta does so well from WhatsApp and from a Facebook perspective, even Instagram, it's easy to use. They don't use a lot of data for these countries that you're paying per megabyte. Like we have the value of free Wi-Fi in so many places. A lot of us have unlimited Wi-Fi plans. We don't even think about our Wi-Fi usage. They do, right? And then the third thing is like making sure that it is safe and reliable. So there are a lot of unfortunately hackers on that side of the world, and making sure that we're able to build a platform that has a safe foundation that is not going to have exposed code, is not going to put our customers, our businesses at risk of losing their hard-earned information, their money. And so these were a lot of the things that I was looking at as a foundation. Now, secondarily, I wanted someone who also had an understanding of the market. And so I didn't necessarily need to have a co-founder who was Nigerian. I'm so happy that Shagun is. It makes it easier. We speak the same language, right? But I wanted someone who understood that this is not a problem that we're tackling from a westernized landscape, right? To the point that I was making, individuals, there is mobile penetration, but we have limitations to data. There is the opportunity, people do have smartphones, right? But there is this hesitation to downloading an app even, right? Like, so website first, then app. A lot of people have phones, not everyone has a desktop, right? And so here are all the things that we have to think about when we're even thinking about the UX of what we're doing. And so just having that in the back of their mind was super important to me, because we didn't want to come out with something that would work really well here or work well in Europe, and then we launch it in Nigeria and it's going to be a low adoption because we're not really speaking the language of the market that we're serving. So those are the things that I was looking at foremost. I think the last thing that I started to really pay attention towards, we can talk about this more, was as I was looking at opportunities for funding, I was looking at trends of what was getting funded. And a lot of the things that were getting funded, especially in the Nigerian market space, were around fintech and around AI. So that said, I was like, okay, how can we not necessarily fit the mold? Because I wanted to do something that was necessary and different, but ride the wave, because as you know, these VCs, these firms, equity, they want to have a sense of security. And so if they've done it once, they've done it 1,000 times, right? And AI is that new buzzword that everyone wants to, put their money and their dollars behind. So how can we make sure that we're at the forefront of this new pioneer and ensure that our product, has a CTO, has a co-founder who feels equipped and who is knowledgeable enough to take us there. And so those were the three things. And that's how I really prioritized them as well when I was looking for the person I wanted to collaborate with.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I was so mesmerized by your thought process and just was thinking to myself, oh my God, she is so smart, and I can't wait to keep hearing more. And what I would love to chat about next is really learning about the first 90 days of building Distrxct. What did you actually do first?
That's a great question. So, like I mentioned, I think it's so funny because, like, what were the first 90 days, right? I think because of the way I started in pieces, um, I had been doing a lot of things on my own before bringing Shagun onto the project. So I had done the market research, just being really curious with friends and family to make sure like there is a problem happening and that someone is going to pay money to solve this. So I did that pre anything technical, but in bringing Shagun on, we really started to think piece, okay, what is this platform going to look like? How are we going to really have it service the people? And then really what is the, I guess, overarching plan. And so within those first 90 from him joining the project, what we really did was we built out the UX. And so we used tools like Lovable and OpenClaw to get an understanding of okay, what could the like layout look like? We actually leveraged different types of scopes from Yelp to Foursquare to next door. So products that had already done well here in the States and also Instagram, like things that are working well everywhere globally to see, okay, what can we pick and pull to make sense for us, right? Making sure that we're really focusing on value. And so a lot of these tools are in a state now that they weren't at 10 years ago at launch. So I'm not sure if you remember Instagram when it first launched, it's nothing to what it was today. So really understanding we really want to take all these great ideas and boil it down to the value. And so what that was for us was making sure that we had a really strong homepage, right? A homepage where individuals could see what was happening in the area. And one from the business POV, they could monetize and advertise their businesses on by geolocation. They wanted to make sure that we had a really good search functionality, one where customers could search by filtering the different businesses in the space. They could see every business page very similar to Yelp, right? Type in like restaurants or hotels or services near me and then can see the different options that are there for them. They can see the reviews at a click away, and so making sure all of the value is front and center, and then making sure that we had a bit of the stickiness to it. So the social aspect is what was going to keep people there. And that's what we figured from the Instagram meta win here in Nigeria was going to work for our business. And so having the friend functionality page as that third bar, making sure that we could have an activities tab. Right now, the word of mouth, um, the way that businesses work and the way that they are able to build traction is through word of mouth. And so that value through word of mouth is so important. And we wanted to simulate that on the app experience. So by having that again front and center as a tab, being able to see my friend just reviewed this business, maybe I should check it out later, as one of the key tabs was super important to us. And then lastly, we just had like a business page for businesses. And a statistic that we really worked into was that 98% of Nigerians, I know this sounds like wild here, but 98% of Nigerians in some way, shape, or form are business owners. I think this is, again, a testament to our economy, for better or worse. Everyone's a hustler, right? And so, in a way, everyone's our customer. Everyone can leverage Distrxct, both as a consumer and as a business. And so we wanted to have those founding four tabs as the drivers for our business. And so we really got to work right away on being able to build out the functionalities of those pages, really start testing it out, and then using a few different focus groups with students in Unilag and there was one other school. We used two different schools to see, okay, like how would you use this? Like, how does this feel to you, right? To make sure that what we were doing like made sense and was coherent. And so once we were able to do that within the first month, it was now about, okay, making sure that we were able to start getting all of the right things operationally set up. And so here's where we kind of split. Obi is going in, he's doing all the coding, he's working to really hire a team of individuals. We kind of outsourced a team at first to help him with the nits and grits of the front end, while he focused on the back end, making sure security is safe. I focused operationally on ensuring that we had our business verification, that we had our taxes done, that we had, once we were, founded officially in Nigeria, that we had paperwork done here in the US. So, for founding groups and investors to invest in us in either area, we had the runway for that. Making sure that we had our banking done. And then going into marketing, I started to actually begin some of these processes for our branding. So branding wise, we started to think about, okay, what does that logo look like? We actually worked with a UX designer. His name was Sam, and we started to think about how we wanted to really conceptualize the Distrxct brand. What color was it going to be? What was it going to look like? And what we decided on with it was, having green, just, some of the, attributes to the color emotionally. And then with the D within Distrxct, our logo has a magnifying glass in it. So it's like almost like a search functionality where it's like, discover with Distrxct, and that being kind of like our slogan. And then the second slogan within Distrxct, because we have that X in the middle, right? X marks the spot. And so we're starting to think about all of these different ways that we can start, really creating our footing in the Nigerian market. And so that's around like the 60-day mark now. And so Obi's finalizing things on the product side. I'm finalizing things from the go to market side. And then the last part is really like creating a founding team. And so once we've been outsourcing a lot of these projects, we start to think about, okay, realistically, we both have full-time corporate roles, mind you. And it's like a lot of work. We wanted to make sure that we're able to continue to keep the momentum going with people that we can trust in Nigeria as we're building this product. And so we started to hire our founding team. So we wanted to have a CMO, which was super important to us, someone who could really take charge and take ownership of our marketing and our PR and our events. A lot of the marketing is in-person marketing, field marketing, because Nigeria, although there is a lot of opportunity online, a lot of the trust is built in person. I don't think that's really surprising for anywhere. Like even in my role, like I visit my clients in person all the time, and we get so much further than the Zoom calls that we do on a weekly basis. So we have Toby doing that, and he does a great job with that. He then was able to hire, a marketing associate to help support him with that role. And then that's our really small but tight marketing team. And they work together to do all things, flyers, events, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it, they're doing it. After that, we went in to start thinking from the technical side. How can we have someone to support Shagun? And so Shagun had a technical support specialist, and Emmanuel's helping with that. And so Emmanuel's whole job is making sure from the UX and functionality side that the website stays up, it stays running. If we're getting feedback from the field, he's able to go in and make in the moment changes, and then also work with Shagun in case that there's security risks and they can do bigger projects together. And so we have that speed and reliability, and we're maintaining trust with our customer base. And then lastly, business development is what I focus on, creating individuals, again, who are willing to get their businesses online. They're also willing to, pay on a monthly basis. And so I hired two business development reps to focus across one of the states that we're focusing on, one state, Lagos, right now, to really understand, the different businesses that we want to first off, expand into, and then getting them up, getting them running, making sure that everything's working well, doing focus groups to ensure that, the product is really getting what they want. And then we're just constantly iterating. And so that's been the first 90, and we've just been on an iteration since then.
Wow, thank you so, so much for walking me through that and putting it so both matter-of-factly, but also so warmly, where it really does feel like, yeah, anyone with an idea that they deeply care about and just this vision and commitment to build, even when they're in a demanding corporate role, can really find the people around them through their connections, really galvanize them, and really build something meaningful that can both make such a difference in community and also, as you shared, be a real business. And these are all of the pieces, the parts, and it was so cool to hear you lay them all out. And I'm so excited to listen back for just all these little tidbits of wisdom that you shared. And I would just love to learn more about the fundraising piece that you mentioned. I think I would love to start with just hearing how you would break down the landscape from your experiences to someone who's never done it before. What really are those stages? What are investors really looking for in each one?
Yeah, I think with fundraising, it goes to what you're building. And so when I first started, I think the mistake that I made early on was that I was just putting my hat in the ring for everything. Like, oh, female founder, that's me. Oh, multi-million AI company. I'll try this. Hey, like bootstrap company, sounds like me. And so really it's, what are you building? What's the focus area? And then which firm, which opportunity best fits you. And I think there are different stages for different levels of funding. And so really breaking it down. And I'm just so glad that I've been able to network and talk to so many people who've done it before me, that I've gotten the understanding of the landscape. And hopefully this was going to be helpful for someone else who's kind of just going through the process. Um, when you are first building your idea, when you're first thinking through what it is that you want to solve, right? You are kind of in that problem ideation phase. Now, there are so many grants and programs that are actually willing to fund you to think of ideas. And so I think sometimes people think, oh, I need to have this idea. I have to build this project. I have to have traction behind it before I can even talk to anyone. And that's just not true. right? It makes things easier. They won't lie, right? But there are different accelerators, there are different programs, there are different grants for individuals to come together to ideate on certain subject areas or certain opportunities for undeveloped countries or, unserving populations. And so, if that's something that you are passionate about, you don't even have to have a problem statement. They will help you come up with one and they will back you from that problem statement. They'll help you find a co-founder. They'll help you build the project and they will fund you the entire way through your project. And so that I guess that's starting is there are different funding groups for different, types. And so ideation is the first stage, right? What's your idea? What is the problem you're trying to solve? Can you validate it? And so there's funding for individuals in that stage. Once you've gotten past the ideation, you can go into market research to validate that. And then now you are kind of going into this MVP, which is a minimum viable product. So once you've launched your MVP, and you are kind of like pre-revenue, there are different funding opportunities and different VCs that are also very interested in jumping on board and supporting you there too. Again, I think it's really important to understand who are you serving? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? You as a founder and your co-founder, like, are you belonging to a marginalized group? Because I am a female founder, there are a lot of grant opportunities, a lot of equity opportunities that are specifically aimed at, trying to make a fair and even playing field for female founders. And so lean into those individuals and those opportunities because I mean, where you don't have that, upper advantage more times than not, that is your advantage, right? And so I think by understanding the different values and the different like personas to the VC firms that are out there, you're able to kind of like catalog through what opportunity best suits you because it's really going to be a partnership long term. So that's the MVP stage is you now have this minimal viable product. Maybe you haven't gotten the first dollar. Maybe you guys are losing on revenue, but you have a really good product. You understand your product market fit. You have an ICP, which is an ideal customer profile, right? You know who you're serving and you understand, okay, for us, like I just mentioned, 98% of individuals in Nigeria have a business. That 98% group, right? They contribute around 50% to Nigeria's GDP, which is a lot of revenue. Of course, not every single person is going to leverage Distrxct, and not every single person who does leverage Distrxct wants to pay for Distrxct because we are a freemium platform. But I can make, very gentle estimates to how I want to enter the market and how that's going to grow year over year. And that's how I pitched the product really early on at that MVP stage when we didn't have that first dollar or when our currency is naira, we didn't have that first naira, right? We weren't able to prove, hey, someone is paying for this, right? But I'm able to say, hey, like, here is the number, here are the people that we're serving, here's our ICP, here's the value that we bring to that ICP. Here is the estimate of individuals that we're going to be able to target. Here's what I think we can capture. So here's a total addressable market, right? And that's your TAM, right? And that is what these VCs want to hear, right? If you can understand that, if you can speak their language, you are now opening their wallets. You're opening their mind towards the value of what you're building. And so at that MVP stage is where we were actually able to get funding, but there's more to it, right? So once you get past MVP, now you have a working product, right? You have multiple iterations before you are a business, but you are, kind of footstepping your way into a into that steady zone. And so at that steady zone, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you're trying to build? Now, I think an issue that we see here in the States is that people build and take equity too fast. And what I mean by that is there are so many different buying vessels. There are so many different ways that you can get funding through VCs, firms, grants, the government. The problem is there the headroom to be a unicorn? And so, if you don't know what these terminologies mean, like let me explain it, right? And for many of you, right, you may be in the tech buzz. And so unicorn really just means a business that's able to really 100x on investment revenue. And so when you think of unicorn businesses, obviously Google is a big one, Apple is a huge one, Facebook, recent ones, Airbnb and Uber are recent unicorns. I'm not sure if DoorDash is one or not, but these are like Airbnb, Uber are some really great examples of recent unicorn businesses where they received funding of maybe a few $1 million checks, and they have been able to 100x that capita, right? Because the total addressable market is huge. But not everybody wants to build a unicorn. And you have to ask yourself, as a founder, what are you trying to build? Now, there is a wide spectrum, of different businesses, and each of them have their own profitability buckets. And so, really understanding where you fall in that rank is the first step before you get that first check. Because if you are taking a multi-million-dollar check, there is an expectation behind the money. Let's just say that there's an expectation behind the revenue to 10x every check that's given to you. So, transparently, we got a six-figure check and we need to 10x that investment. Now, if I got a seven-figure check, I would also need to 10x that investment. And so, for us, coming into this market, I want to be a unicorn, but I also want to make sure that I am able to start at a place where I can have enough profitability backing. And I also want to have enough ownership to my own business. Because with every check that you take, you're losing a bit of equity, right? You're writing these safe contracts. You're basically saying, front me this money now and I will pay you back, in a future round. And so you're losing more and more equity as time goes on. And when you ultimately become a public company, right, you want to make sure that it's still your company at the end of the day. And so these are a lot of the things that I had to think about when I was going through all of the conversations to getting my first check of funding is okay, number one is where do we fit in, right? And for me, because of the market that I was representing, I did not have the grace of really being able to start the fundraising journey at an ideation state. I wish I would have been able to. I was able to meet a few people who were able to find VCs and equity firms that paid for their ideas and were basically like, hey, here's a check, build your team to do this great idea. And I'm like, that is so lucky. I was not the case for me. I put a lot of my money into it and I bootstrapped, which is basically like putting your hard-earned dollars into it. And we started building out our MVP. We were able to get customers on the platform first. And then I was able to take that and talk to different VCs and different angel investors and also different grants and opportunities on the government side of things. I know I didn't talk too much into that, but there are so many free, like free air quotes, government opportunities where they want to invest in solutions that are helping specific sectors. And we started to really just go in and network and say, hey, like, here's what we're doing, here's our mission statement, here is the total addressable market, here is the goal, this is how much we're asking for, and here's what we're going to do with the money, right? Here's how we're going to 10x your initial investment. And so through a lot of no's, we're able to get that first yes and that first big check. And so that's where we are today.
Congratulations. And I'm so, so grateful you again explained all of that so warmly. And it was so helpful to really have the terminology for all of this, context across all of these stages. And for whoever listening, whatever stage they're in, there's just so much value you've provided in everything you shared. I am so, so grateful. What I would love to know, just building on what you've shared, is how did you actually approach maybe cold emails to investors? What really was that structure? What does one lead with? And what really kills a pitch before it even starts?
Mm-hmm. So I'm forever thankful to my corporate experience for this because in the corporate space, I started my tech career as a sales development representative or a market development representative, depends who's asking. And basically, our whole goal was to cold pitch, different businesses. For me, I started at DocuSign and we did federal. So I was cold pitching federal leaders on the value of DocuSign. And so we had to take a strategic approach to this with emails and phone calls where it's like, you needed something where they're not going to just hang up on you. They're not going to just trash your email. And so you always want to start with a pattern disrupts, right? That first sentence is so crucial to really getting them to read the rest of the chunk of the email. So usually for me, when thinking about pitching for Distrxct, I always think to the person I'm talking to. Who's on the other end of this receiving email? What do they care about, right? Because our specific project is focusing on, again, really building an economic, opportunity for individuals in Africa. And me being a female founder, and again, like it's 50-50, Shagun's male, but 50-50. So over 50% of our business is female funded. I really leaned into those areas, right? I leaned into those different areas when looking for funding opportunities, whether it be from angel investors, be from, private equity, be from governmental grants. And so usually the first sentence would be alongside the mission statement of the individual or the company that they were in response to. So let's say I am sending an email to like the MBDA, which is for like small businesses. It's like a federal it's a federal can't speak today. It is a federal wow, mind blank. It is a federal council for small businesses, specifically like for different for it's like a different diverse group of businesses. And so when sending an email to them, I go in, I Google what are their 5-year initiatives and plans, what is their mission statement, what are their goals. When I'm looking at the person that I'm specifically messaging, have they posted anything on LinkedIn? Can I kind of regurgitate their own words to them on LinkedIn? Have they been in any articles? Have they been in any PR? Everybody loves hearing about themselves. Like everybody loves that, number one, you know who you're talking to and like you've done your research. And so my first sentence is always showing that individual. I know who you are. I've done my research. I know that you're important. And this is why I'm reaching out to you, Like Hey Ricky, it's great to connect with a amazing podcaster like yourself who has been at the forefront of, interviewing so many inspirational women. My name is Stephanie Opene as a second sentence, right? I would love to be on your podcast because, and then that second one being the value, right? And so that first sentence really opened them in to reading the second. And so I really structure it like that way. And so when I'm looking at different opportunities for Distrxct, the second sentence, the punch is, why am I trying to build this? Like, what is the total addressable market? I am building a platform that's allowing individuals to connect with opportunity. The total addressable market is roughly this much. And with your investment, I believe that we're able to 10x the opportunity by 2020, what is this, 2026 now? So by 2030, so like 5 years. And so would love to chat more. Here's my phone number. Are you free in 2 weeks? And so really short and sweet for the first message. Now, realistically, nobody answers that first message, but it really primes the recipient to hopefully respond later on. And so usually I respond to that in a chain of two or three other emails across the maybe like a week or so, just let them know like, hey, I want to be respectful of their inbox, but like I'm reaching out to you for a reason. This is not a copy and paste email. And I think a lot of times people fall into that trap of like, again, like AI is so great, but like because it's so great, people know when AI is being used and AI is being used at scale. Like a personal touch goes a long way. And so coming in that second time, like, hey, I know you're busy, but wanted to follow up here. I saw you posted this on LinkedIn. Here's why Distrxct fits exactly what you're looking for. Here's why Distrxct matches the grant opportunity that you are, contracting out right now. Here's why Distrxct, matches a similar, product or company that you recently invested in, right? Again, like, would love to chat further. Can we set up some time, right? Again, with that ask at the end. And then the third time, again, usually just trying to get an understanding of, okay, reached out two or three times to you, really want to get an understanding of like, what it is that you're looking for, maybe like a pattern disrupt this time. What are some things that I can share about Distrxct that can help really clarify the project for you? And usually that third or fourth email gets it for them, where I'm asking them, like, from your expertise, like, what do you want to see from this project? I've shared all of these things with you across three or four emails. Usually I also try to call them. I'm also on their LinkedIn. Like I I am bugging them, right? Respectfully. So and usually by this time they do respond. And again, I got a lot of no's, right? And the majority of the no's were because we didn't have enough traction. They're like, well, we want to see the numbers. We want to see how many people are on the website, how many people are, actually reviewing on the daily, how many people are coming back, right? What is the average usage time? What is the average subscription amount, right, for the businesses that we have? And so at an earlier stage, we didn't have a lot of those numbers. And so we did get a lot of no's right away, but it allowed me to get an understanding of what was valuable to these different individuals that I was reaching out to. From the grant perspective, I think for a grant, it's a little different because grants are almost like I said, free money. I think you get less response because there are so many people going after it. Grants usually don't take equity from you, so you're allowed to maintain full ownership of your business, and the government or these nonprofits are giving you money to solve a solution. I guess the return that you have to do is obviously you have to be very transparent, right, to them, right, and show how are you using that funding. And so because grants are just a little bit more, I'd say, I think it was just a little bit more competitive in that landscape. I wasn't able to get as much responses back from the grant contractors, but one thing that one of them did let me know was because of our current administration. We just there wasn't just as much of a focus in the African market, and so that was good to know. Again, because with every, I guess no, with every you know, with every response that I got, it was a redirection to how I was thinking. Okay, like the grant side of the house, it was actually like my main focus for a long time because I wanted to keep as much equity as possible. Like that was always my goal. It's like I think I'm going to run this on all these grants. US aid is a huge thing. There's like a lot of like African, US coalitions. There's all of these grant vehicles. Again, I was formally trained on this through DocuSign because I literally did this for DocuSign. So I understand how to read grant contracts and I know how that sales process works. And I really thought that was going to be like our bread and butter. And then the administration changed and, our president was like, we are going to halt all of this for a lot of African countries. And that had to shift and had to redirect. But it was really important for me to know, okay, now how do I start really going in and prospecting my idea towards, angel investors and private equity? On the private equity front, they want to see proof. For a lot of these different regions that are, you know, opportunity focused, but maybe I would say more risky, right? Private equity is a little bit more risk adverse, right? When you hear the likes of like Warren Buffett or, all of these like major investors, what they always say is that they want to have risk adverse investments. And so they want to be able to see how their money is going to translate back to revenue over time. Because Africa is a less explored avenue for major VC backing and major private equity backing, a lot of private equity firms want to almost have you prove that this business is a successful business before they put multi-million dollars behind the business. And at that point, you don't even need their money. So it's like make it make sense, right? So I was like, okay, good, but like cool. So now it's like, okay, really by doing all of this, and again, like getting all these no's via email, via phone call, right? It helps me understand that I need to focus into angel investment. And for angel investment, these are individual investors who have either endowments or they have their own, like they are multimillionaires in their own right and they have their own businesses and they are making big bets that private equity firms aren't doing from a corporate point of view. These are individuals who are really funding your business, right? Hence angel investor. And so I just started ripping through, right? I was looking for angel investors who are also Nigerian or African. I was looking for angel investors who are women. I was looking for angel investors who had, done this before with other similar kind of business types, right? And so I was able to find the angel investor who was actually Nigerian. He was a man, but who understood exactly what it was I was doing. And he understood that there was a need in the market. He saw the vision and he wrote the check. And that, I know I spoke a lot, so hopefully all of this made sense, but it really takes so much, research and so much, strategy in writing the emails and, being able to, again, think about the person that you're talking to, understand what they would want to respond back to, right? And then they're not going to respond with the first email, right? Think about yourself. Like you get thousands of emails a day. Even the emails that like you need to respond back to, you don't sometimes. And it does take two or three emails to get to you, right? And so you have to really approach it from that lens of okay, when they finally open my email, like the first thing that they should see is something valuable in that first sentence that's going to make them continue to read on. And even if it's not a good fit for you, at least get them to respond. And that was a strategy that I took that allowed me to continue to get those pivots and redirections to where I was able to land up.
That is So iconic. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that you've really thoughtfully characterized all the effort that went in because it's not just sending out 100 emails to 100 people and then hoping to hear back. No, you're sending maybe 100 emails, but you're following up. So it really triples. It's 300 emails. And I think it's so helpful to hear that you need to be that persistent and what sales really is and how this is so inherent to your process, but to someone else who may not have had that DocuSign exposure and has never, considered or thought about it in this way, they might be really sweating at 50 emails or the 100 emails or the 200 emails, but it's really at the 300 is when you're going to hear back. And it's really after approaching these three different buckets of groups that you can hone in on one and then from there really broaden the scope within this bucket that you know may be the best fit for you. And I listen to a lot of podcasts and I just don't think we talk about that enough. And I'm just so grateful that, again, you're explaining it to me with the warmth of a friend. And I really hope that it radiates and shines through for the listener too, and that it feels like a comforting conversation. There's so much hard work and there's so much effort that goes behind this, but everything that you've shared has felt so comforting and figure outable. And so, again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge. And I would love to go into networking and community. What has it looked like for you practically? You touched on this before, in terms of getting into the rooms with the right people early on, what has that meant? You mentioned a really close friend who had formed the co-founder connection as well. What did it look like to even meet that person and really nurture that relationship? How have those come to be?
Yeah. I think the best networking happens when you're not trying to network. Now, take that as you will, but with networking, there's definitely an art and a science to it, right? There's the intentionality behind going out to these events, right, with like-minded individuals who are there for a shared cause or a thematic, reason, and being able to put yourself out there and talk about your project or talk about yourself and your interests and kind of pitch yourself or market yourself to allow yourself to be perceived and to again follow up on that network um, to make it work. And that is definitely a way to think towards networking. I think it's also a valuable way when you're in a space that you don't know anyone. I really started a lot of my professional networking when I moved to Seattle. And that's actually where I did meet Dimitri, but I didn't meet him in a professional networking setting. So in Seattle, this is kind of when I knew it's COVID. I knew I want to move into tech. I don't know how to make the pivot. I I knew I had transferable skills. I just didn't know how to market them. I just needed someone to give me a chance. And so I was like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? I'm like kind of like toiling around. And so I was like, okay, like I'm gonna start going to events and like, start going to these like, online, career fairs and stuff because we were still kind of, distancing ourselves, these online career fairs. I was right next to University of Washington, so there was a lot of students as well that did like student-led events. I had just graduated, so I was still kind of, in that age group. So I was networking with students that, had no clue who I was. Like, do you go here? Nope. Like, so it was like, okay, like I'm putting myself out there, and I was making the mistake of not being truly intentional to the relationship, right? It was all about me, me, me. I want to get into tech. I want to get into tech. How can you help me? I never really asked any of them, like, how can I help you? Right? Like, I would, do the spiel, right? Tell me about yourself. What are you trying to do? But I would never really follow up on the opportunity of ways I could serve and to help them. And as I grew into my career, I learned that was a huge mistake that people make when networking, because the biggest impact to networking is being valuable for the other individual, and it really pays off in the long term because your network will go far and wide. But what they'll remember is that Stephanie remembered that one little thing about me, or, it doesn't have to be getting them a job or, getting them into, a multi-million dollar investment opportunity, but it could be something as small as like, hey, I know that you are really interested in building this AI project. I saw there's this event happening. Have you heard about it? So easy. I remember our conversation. I took a second to think about you and I sent you this message because it was intentional and valuable to you. Right. And so that's how you build a true network. And so, mind you, I wasn't doing this when I in Seattle, but I was really, yeah, just going out and trying to network my way through. And it was actually on the way back from one of these networking opportunities. I was going back to my apartment complex and I ran into this person who was just in the apartment area as well. Dimitri works at Microsoft. And it was just so random and so genuine. I don't even remember what we were ended up talking about. We just bumped into each other and we just started having a conversation, a regular conversation, and it was about this TV show. It was about oh my goodness, it's an Issa Rae TV show. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head right now. But to anyone who knows Issa Rae, shout out to you because met a really great friend because of you. But Issa Rae had put this TV show, ended up connecting. I was like, I want to watch the show. You want to watch the show? Watched it together. And then we're starting to talk about things outside of the show. He starts to talk about work. I was like, I'm really trying to get into tech. He's really trying to help me understand how to really frame myself in this landscape, because tech goes beyond having technical skill set. It's like, how can you be valuable in a non-technical role? Like, there are, again, sales individuals who have to sell the technology, and that is a skill. Like, I can sell things, I can do that. And so that really propelled me into that career. And then we're also talking about ambitions and opportunities. He's Haitian, I'm Nigerian. We're talking about our different landscapes, and later on he connects me to my co-founder. And so that is just a way that, networking organically has continued to multiply not just friendship, but opportunities that I would never have foreseen. And so later on in life, I think it was actually Dimitri who probably taught it to me. Taught me so many things, like from the technical aspect, from the networking aspect. I began to start networking intentionally. So moving back home to San Francisco, when I started going to these founder events and I started to meet people, I would have a notebook and, I would jot down their name. Would always connect on LinkedIn, but I would jot down their name and I would try to jot down one or two little notes about them, right? Usually it'd be like one little fun fact, right? Like, oh, like this person has a dog, or this person lives in the Presidio, or this person likes to skateboard, or whatever have it. And then I would also like to write a professional thing about them. This is what they're building. This is what they're interested in, right? And then casually, as things came across on my LinkedIn or as I ran into other opportunities throughout the week, I would go to my notebook every week and I would try to see, okay, like, how can I keep this network alive? And that's the biggest thing about networking, is that people treat networking as a transactional one-time thing. Like, hey, I'm gonna meet you, Ricky. We're gonna have this conversation today, and I'm never gonna talk to you again. It's like, that's not how it works. No, like, networking is really like professional friend development, right? It's like having those professional backings, because one day, Ricky, you're going to have an amazing, show and an opportunity. Maybe you're going to have a PR firm and I am going to be doing my own thing. And then maybe you're going to think about me. I'm going to think about you. I was like, hey, like, I remember this exact conversation 3, 5 years later, and then we reconnect, on that, and we keep the network alive in between those years, so it's not just like an out of the blue moment. And so there's just so many aspects to networking that I think people really don't take the time or the intentionality behind. I think it takes just as much effort as it does, with making friends, as it does to really having a good network of individuals. And it's not as hard as people really make it out to be. I think really show up, right? Show up, be yourself, right? Be present. Don't feel afraid to be vulnerable to the ask. People know you're there, right? Especially if you're going to a network event like for founders or for specific, reason, right? Like everyone in that room is there for the exact same reason as you. There is no need to hide the reason that you're talking to each other. And that's totally fine. Like be there, be vulnerable, be present, but also be a human. And try to maintain that human connection with each individual on like a monthly or even like a quarterly basis. Like every month, every 3 months, try to send someone a ping, like, hey, thought about you. How's that project going? I saw this thing online and hopefully you read about it. Like, what are your thoughts? You know? So being I think I know I've been talking for a second, but you know, being just like human, really allowed me to meet Dimitri, who allowed me to get a better grasp of like my networking skills. He really introduced me to a huge network of other individuals. That network of other individuals helped me get into tech, helped me find my co-founder, and is just continuing to help me progress my career. And so it really just keeps giving back.
No, I could hear you talk for forever, so never, never feel like you need to apologize because once again, I'm so grateful for all the little gems you shared, especially having your notebook or your phone and being able to create a system around capturing these tidbits because what I really believe is that you are compelled to write something down when there is an authentic connection. And I think for me, having an authentic network has felt so important because even if you ping someone, it's really hard to nurture relationships that feel transactional. So there's something inside of you that does really resonate or connect to something that you've written down. It compels you to reach out and it compels you to create a structure that makes it easy to stay in touch, to support one another, and to really know that you can ask questions and, yeah, really provide that mutual sense of upliftment and really being there for one another. And you've just shared such incredible things today. I'm so, so grateful. I was wondering if there's anything else that you would like to share or anything else that you would like to deep dive on.
I think the biggest thing that I'd love to share, and I hope this, reaches the right audience here, is everyone has a place at the table for anything that you're trying to build. I feel like everyone, if you want to be a business owner, if you want to have your own project, especially now more than ever, there is a place at the table for you. There are so many accelerators that will support you and your idea. It does not matter if you do not know one code from another, you don't have to. Like, if you have a real idea, if you see a pain point and you feel like you are equipped to drive a solution, like, you need to stand up and find the way to get that done because there are so many ways that the network will support you. There are so many opportunities that you can leverage these different funding vehicles, grant opportunities, accelerators to support you, other people's money to support you. And there are so many free tools, AI, you name it, that can even help you if you don't have a technical co-founder, for your first, few months. So I just want to like give that level of encouragement to other people because for me, I never knew that I could be where I am. I really thought that you need an engineering degree to, to do this. And it's like, I'm again so thankful that I do have an engineer backing me up. Again, Shagum, if you're hearing this, we love you. Thank you so much. Um, but like you really can really get a footing in the market. And so to that, don't sleep on your idea. Really take the time to validate the pain, right? Validate the pain and then really build that product.
I love that so, so much. And you've given me and really everyone listening so much to think about. And I just feel so motivated to feel like I can do anything, truly.
Yes, you really
So,
can.
thank you so, so much for your time, your energy, and just paving the way for another little Stephanie to come along and really build out their idea. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And yeah, I'm just so grateful.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to keep talking with you. So I'm just glad that we could do this, and I hope that someone feels inspired by this.